Good morning, everybody. Welcome to October, a new season, a new year. And I'm very excited and very eager to share uh, this sister project with you. We have our Helpers Project and our Community Empowerment Project. And it will be very fun to share this with you because it isn't only a project. Not that any project is only a project. I want to share it with you because maybe you'll want to do something like that yourself or with others. But also I want to share the growing edge of my work with you, which comes out of these projects. So I'm going to need you people to keep me from talking too much because there's so much to say about this, and I don't want this to be a talky reflection, but I want it to be us experiencing something together. I want to begin with a little story of the Community Empowerment Project. I've been very much not a political person, although I have participated. This sounds a little bit contradictory. I have participated in many movements, the civil rights movement, the gay rights movement, the women's movement, and I've always loved that sense of community in trying to find a new way of being. But the political details of it never grabbed me. And when Trump got in office in 2016, and there was tremendous upheaval, and I saw communities really unraveling. I didn't feel like just having been part of different movements in my life was enough. I wanted to do something. And it occurred to me that focusing could really help here in this sort of polarized, torn apart country. And it was exciting to me to think, how could focusing help? In the movements I had been part of, I saw how each zestful, passionate movement was torn apart by an inability to really reconcile differences and work together. And I thought, I wonder if focusing could help us to have real conversation, to navigate all of the differences. And I thought back on how focusing was always a community event. And at the heart of focusing is the idea of interaction first, that we are interaction. And yet, there was never really group discussion in focusing, because Gene was very suspicious of what he called groupthink. And groupthink is this sense of a norm that everybody has to assent to in order to be part of that group, in order to be acceptable. And of course, Gene, with his escape from the Nazis, could, in a very palpable way, see where that kind of groupthink can lead. And he would jokingly say to me, "Oh, I have to destroy group process," when we were in a workshop and people were beginning to gel as a group. So I thought to myself, how can we have real interaction first, interconnectedness, and not rely on groupthink, on norms that people are in some way constrained by, even if they're wonderful norms. How can we have community where people are able to really differ and be in real dialogue? Carl Rogers had done a lot with encounter groups, and the philosopher Hans Gadamer had done a lot with what he calls genuine conversation, that he felt would save the world, was all we could look to. So I was very influenced by both Carl and Gadamer. Anyway, so I decided to have these little introductions to focusing that would be free and inviting everybody, no matter what background or why they wanted to use it, although I was clear about why I wanted to teach it. And it was a kind of a miracle. I'll never forget how I put the word out about these introductory workshops, and all of these people from diverse countries and cultures signed up immediately and arrived on my door. And from that, Isabel said she wanted to join me, and Yao, who was then Ramel, and Susan and Yoka and Clara wanted to join me. They came out of this original thing. So I want to show you a little video of what the in-person original community empowerment was like. And it was such fun for me to see this because, of course, things are very different now doing it on Zoom, but I wanted to give you a feel for it. So sit back and see if you can sort of join us in this and imagine yourself part of this group, and imagine how surprising it is that all of these people were so receptive to focusing.
And she brings this wonderful food for our community empowerment project. Look at these raspberries. Oh my God.
And a peach saffo.
Yeah, these wonderful chips.
Yeah, and the chips, this sweet
And
potato
then
chips.
Manchego cheese.
Manchego cheese, it's my favorite.
If Jupiter were translucent and had an inner fire, that's how my heart feels right now. It's kind of expanding a little bit. It has that shape to it. Gaseous, glowing quality.
Wow.
Yeah, it really seemed like Mark embodied that really well. The be with and the let it speak.
Thank you so much.
Be with and then let it speak. That's not just literal reflecting. That's super powerful and bring forward of the conversation.
Having the focusing, it was an instance of interaction where, you know, having that focusing interaction pull that response of that focusing and that focusing.
Surprising ways, and I love surprises, and I love how everybody brought themselves into it in a different way.
Wow. Thank you.
What came in you when you saw that little video? Was there anything that struck you about it?
That everyone seems so happy. That's what struck me. Everyone seemed very happy.
I loved the faces when I was watching this, and there's something about focusing that, of course, brings, the inside person, and just these videos of people in the process of focusing is very different than if I took, pictures of people just in general. It's sort of like taking pictures, and I'm very grateful that people let me do that, taking pictures of people in a very intimate moment.
It seemed very alive, and there was a connection. It was nice to see people in persons too, together.
Yes, that seems special, very, very special nowadays. Just a little advertisement here. All of you could do this. It was four sessions about the different elements of focusing: listening, speaking, felt sense, and interaction, and just people together. So you could do that in your, now that we don't have to be as careful with COVID, you could do that in your own home. So that was the beginnings, and that was my teaching the elements of focusing to people. then things began to heat up, things began to become difficult with people with different personalities, different cultures, not understanding each other. Focusing didn't just automatically help that. And the project of teaching people focusing became more a project of using those fundamental skills of focusing. How could we have genuine conversation across difference? And it was that time when COVID hit and we had to be online, which made it more complex. And but it also broadened our community to people all around the world, which was very exciting. But this idea of genuine conversation across difference took on a kind of new life. What is conversation? Real conversation. I picture it sort of like a ball game, which I know nothing about sports or anything like that, but I picture loads of people with balls, trying to catch and throw, rather than the world that I knew most, which is a one-to-one world in psychotherapy, where you have a therapist and a client, and they're throwing and catching the ball. And there's clearly a difference in roles there. So how do we go from this what I've called the I and the you to the we of the therapy relationship, which I've done a lot of work on. And now there's this whole bigger we. There's the we of the group, the we of the society, the we of the world. And all of that is inter-affecting each one of us. We are all interconnected, and it's hard to even get one's mind around that. Jean's idea of interaction first, that we're made out of interaction. And how could we play with that idea in such a way that we would be able to have a team sport? We would be able to have the giving and receiving in this, and understand something about our interconnectedness. So the project was also a kind of experiment. Now I'm going to come back to that point, but our Help the Helpers was born then when COVID hit. And that's been the second project of trying to find connectedness and understand how it works. And the purpose of the two are a little different. The community empowerment is to find out how we can have real conversation across difference. The Help the Helpers project is about how can we use our support and connectedness to enable us to be the thing that is needed in the world, and to be able to find how to be the right kind of ingredient that the world needs now. And it has been a wonderful, I have just loved this project of Help the Helpers. The Community Empowerment Project is centered more on the lack of relying on structure to give us form, and trying to find if we can have spontaneous conversation that isn't molded. And we're struggling with that. Can we do that? How do we do that? And what I've noticed is that going from understanding ourselves, which we were doing in the 70s, to understanding the other and deep listening, to understanding how to work in a partnership, to understanding the larger group and how that works there is an incredible leap from the I and the you and the small and the small us is a big leap, but then to the larger group is a big leap. And what we found is that there are whole new skills that are involved here. And I think of this as my attempt to carry Jean's work forward in terms of really spelling out what interaction first means. And in this spelling out of interaction first, we have to find not only the felt sense of the other, the felt sense of ourselves, the felt sense of the dialogue, the two, but the felt sense of the whole of the group, of the zeitgeist. That's amazingly difficult, but it is also organic, like focusing is. We really have a felt sense of the group, but we don't know how to access it, like not knowing focusing. We all have some feeling for what's happening in the group, what the group needs, where the group is going. And in these new skills, we want to find that felt sense and try it out. The skills go from our regular focusing to a sort of broader thing. So if we think of regular focusing as the focuser speaking from their feelings, speaking up, having the courage to say it, even to themselves. Speaking to, and that's a big one. You're not just speaking it out. I love that in Jean's paper, fitting in, pouring out, and relating, where he says we want to speak to the other. And then speaking with. There's a withness. That's another step. So we're trying to hone those skills in a larger group. We were speaking to the group. We're speaking from ourselves. We're speaking up even when it feels dangerous, because there are always group norms. But we don't want to rely on those group norms. To really listen from ourselves, listen to the other in that broader way, rather than listening to the ideas, but listening to what is underneath the ideas. The withness of, even when we disagree, even when we passionately disagree with another person, to not fall back on the easy stance of they're wrong and I'm right, and how can I correct them? But to understand, is there a grain of truth? Where does this come from? How can I be with this? One of the main principles that has come out of this work is the principle that we can't change the other person, but we can change the dynamic. We can change the dance. And that isn't that hard. It is, in a way, it's the hardest thing in the world. In another way, it's much easier to think of changing the dynamic than it is changing the other person or changing yourself for that matter. So I'm going to stop here and see what comes from you. And then what I'd like to do is for 10 minutes, just have a conversation of whatever comes to you, and then see what was in that conversation. What was the flow of it? Okay, let's begin with just the way we usually do it, which is whatever is there for you is welcome. Any thoughts you have about this? How it's similar and different from our helpers group? What it means to you to get a felt sense of the us?
I can just say that, like, one of the observations I had is in the video and so forth is just the communicating between the people. It's so much different than how I feel like communication goes on in Congress, or, you know, in a house, or in politics of any kind that we've seen, where it's so demonstrative and loud, and not like listening or having a kind of true tender interaction would be weakness, and not what it's about. It is about like everybody throwing their ball as hard as they can at, you know, it's like a trial by, not by fire, but like by force. And so this give and take, it's almost too feminine for politics. It almost doesn't have, it's not appreciated as this sort of pounding until you get your point across. And witnessing the interactions in the video, there was such, that looked like what communications meant to be, like really hearing one another, and the courage to be present and have a give and take that's much more a natural, like has the possibility of real change and so forth taking place. And that's what's needed. And like when we talk about we need global change, we have to go change this and that. It seems like this is global change. If we were communicating like this regularly with one another, we could do anything.
I just have a question about whether or not you can actually get a felt sense of the group.
Mm.
Because each person would have a different felt sense of the group.
Yes.
So
yes.
That's just sort of a edge for me.
It's a wonderful, wonderful question. Yeah. It isn't that different than getting a felt sense of the other person, because the other person has lots of different selves. Right? You're getting a sense of the other person, but the other person, you have different selves and they have different selves. But let's try it for a minute. What is your felt sense of this group right now?
I have, for me, Lynn, it's kind of disparate, disparate little, here are these little boxes. And my sense is if someone did an attunement, like a deep attunement, afterwards, it would feel completely different.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? In focusing or in focusing oriented therapy, we always have to check. We say, I sense that this is going on. Is that right? And it's the same with the felt sense of the group. You're always have your feelers out and checking. Does it feel disparate, and how? And does anybody else have just anything about the felt sense of the group?
I feel the felt sense of this is Shashi.
Yes.
I feel the felt sense of the group changes from day to day and topic to topic, and also how much you put into it. Um, like last week, I was asking last week, I want to know how many of you are patient with yourself or something like that, when we had that thing. So I felt I could just easily go and ask everybody, like
yes,
like a fool, that as if because I just felt connected with everybody to say, okay,
yes,
what about you? What is this group?
yes, yes, yes.
So it depends upon how much you want to put out there and how you feel connected. I just felt connected, so I felt free to say, okay, tell me what you think. That's
And what about right now, Sashi?
I think if I really felt about an issue, I could ask. I feel comfortable, I guess, or I feel free to ask or say something like that.
It felt to me that the felt sense of the group changed when Sashi said that. Did anybody else have that?
The word that came to me was safe.
Uh-huh.
And we see lots more people now.
Uh-huh, yes, yes. What was it about what Sashi said that made us feel freer, safer?
I think a sense of, communality. We all can relate.
Yes, yes, yes. Also, Sashi was invoking that feeling, right? When she said that, we all said, oh, yes, we have that in this group. And it was so lovely to hear Sashi talk about it. She was bringing it here, something like that. What I would like to suggest is for the next 10 minutes that we go from here and just have a conversation for 10 minutes. And what I mean by that is that instead of the configuration being I'm in the center of the wheel and then people are speaking to each other, but to me, that we all speak to each other and we don't we don't wait for me to reflect. We reflect each other or ask each other, or that we I could probably draw a diagram, right? So that it isn't leader-centered, but in the next 10 minutes, we just see how it is to have a conversation. Are you up for that experiment? Let's raise our hands if we are. And just see what happens. Yeah. In our Help the Helpers project, we go more and more in that direction. But this is to see what happens if we're paying attention to the conversation. Where is the conversation going? But just whatever is in you to say it. Whatever is in you to respond to another person, respond to them without permission from anybody.
I want to hear what Monica had to say before you invited us to do this.
I thank you. I can't actually see who said that, but that's all right. What I was going to say was, Lynn, you had asked about the felt sense of the room, and I was really feeling the room and the group as individually and as a group so internal and contemplative and like, in like really in each person in their own space. And then when Shashi, when you mentioned patience and a question that was particular to you, that changed the mind of the room to focus more as a group together. Oh, what's Shashi saying here? Okay. So it went from more individual to contemplating a particular individual's question.
Hi, Lynn. I'm referring back to, even though you said a conversation, because I just don't want to jump on someone, but it's kind of like it's maybe I'm doing that kind of as a first step, so I don't jump on someone. But it's like, is it that there's kind of an intention to have a conversation with someone in the group? Is that it?
Well, notice that the tendency is to talk to me, right? And what I'm experimenting with here is I'm very happy to be part of being talked to, but to talk to each other. And my intention in the experiment is that we all talk to each other. We all talk to the group. And just see what happens. So I would invite you to see what you would like to say about that. Do you want it to be that way, that you have a conversation with another person, or?
Yeah, I feel puzzled now, even though that clarified it something, in that I had some intention to talk to a person rather than talk to a group. And I see that completely different. That if I was talking to a group, I would be talking to all of these. But and that's kind of hasn't an identity for me, all of that, even though I'm doing it now, because it doesn't have an identity for me, it's a group of people that I know some individuals. So my intention in jumping in, because it felt exciting, was to ask Jim, would he have an exchange with me?
What wonderful. Well, that's part of it, right? The individuals, and then we're all included in that.
Sure. Yeah. It's like,
yeah,
that was,
go for it.
Well, I haven't heard from Jim yet. He didn't say yes.
Well, you didn't ask him directly.
I don't need to be asked directly. I understood I was being asked. When this is the start of our conversation. When Shashi said what she did, I wasn't really listening to the content of it. I was listening to the fact that I remember what she's talking about. I was in a breakout room with her when that conversation took place. So I was thinking back to then, and I was thinking about how a group where people know each other is a lot different from a group where nobody knows anybody, or some people know each other and other people are strangers. It's very different. And in some sense, I think the more people know each other, the harder it is, because then there becomes a whole lot of details, and these details then, for example, since I was there for that situation with Shashi, I was in a different place than a lot of people in the group who were not there at that time. So it makes the group more, what was the word? Disparate, I guess is the word that we used before when that happened. And I don't think I was addressing Pauline particularly for that, but I'm also addressing Pauline since I know Pauline.
And I was part of that group, the three of us last week.
Right.
And I thought about it during the week, just lightly and gently, and even coming on this morning, just what was the impact of that. But so there's two things in my mind. One is I loved the idea, Jim, that you had said, the turning of the group at one stage. I just liked I just like the sound of that. But also what I was struck by, that what happened when Sashi spoke in this group today, someone picked up, I think it was you, Lynn, and it's automatically assumed that the mind of the group changed. I didn't experience that whatsoever. And then when Mary said, I wonder if it can get a felt sense of the group, I thought of the word resonance, that a felt sense is a resonance, whatever is made up of that. And that's kind of resonance is resonance, but it's kind of quantifiable now around safety. And this is the last thing I'll say just in this gush. Just before I came on, I just caught a glimpse of our, what they call it, a Taoiseach here, and Taoiseach, so Prime Minister and Second in Command. He was talking about Ukraine, and I thought, he's not representing my worldview, and I know how difficult it would be that on the airways now. But even now, those sort of ordinary conversations, it's, well, who the we are, who the we are, even in this group, it's an identity. So anyway, that's kind of enough, enough content into that now. So yeah.
That is the tyranny of the group, when the person speaking assumes that the we is who they think the we is, and they speak to the we, kind of trying to make them be that person.
Yeah.
Can I say something? Because I think it's easier for me to connect with all just as a human level than to really know the details about each of you or something like that. To me, it feels like, maybe that's why I just like say things without thinking of all these details. Like I don't know the details of everybody, but I just feel that each of you are a person like me with all these complications and all these hopes and expectations and fears and what have you. So if I throw something out there, so what? So I feel that way. That's how I connect, I think. Maybe that's not the way to do it in this sophisticated world, I guess.
Well, it's a lot easier to do that when you don't know the people. If you do know them, then there's distractions like what you know.
How much do we know each other, even though we've been meeting for 3 years or something? How much do we know of each other? Only what we present here, right? We don't know each other, do we? I don't think I know each one. I only know a little bit of you, what you present here, right?
I guess it's what you mean by the word know. Does anybody ever know anybody completely?
Well, that's just staying at this level of this interaction and this Monday morning help for helpers group where I know these faces and we have talked about these issues and people present in different ways. I only know that much, and that even if I was I don't know, yeah, we only know this much about anybody, that from what eyes we see them with, I think.
There is different depths of knowing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know some of you more because I've been in those rooms. What's the name of it already? The waiting, the whatever, the little rooms. I know some of you more because I've been with you, and some of you less, and some of you more. And I see it's 10:30, or whatever, 30, 9, 8:30, 9 o'clock. Sorry, mixing up the time. Anyhow, yeah, different level of knowing. That's what I wanted to say.
It's about 2 o'clock here in the afternoon.
Christine is telling us that the 10 minutes are up. Her timekeeper status is being invoked.
Ah, uh-huh. Christine, is our 10 minutes up?
Yes.
Okay.
I know we're at the end of the 10 minutes, but I just want to say in response, with Sashi, I think, after being here for over 3 years, I guess, or was it 3 years, whatever it's been, even though I don't know everybody in the details, the people that I've connected with and people here that I've heard and listened to, I have a felt sense about people. It's not necessarily knowing details, but I have just an aura of them or a sense of who they are, and that's okay for me. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Can I say something too? Hi, Steph here, very quick.
Hi.
I have not met any of you in focusing groups or I'm not a therapist. I do help in support groups, so I have that. But and then I've learned focusing through coming here, so I sometimes feel like an outlier. But I feel very safe and accepted in spite of all of that. And I feel that when I enter a breakout group, there's this understanding, even in the big group, there's just an understanding of acceptance and that I have a voice. And I really like what Rachel said about listening, because I think by listening, it just provides safety. So thanks.
Thanks. Yeah.
Notice the energy now. If we tune in and feel the sense of the group. Do you feel a difference?
It feels friendlier to me.
Mm-hmm. So how was that different, that 10 minutes, than what we usually do? I have to admit that it was so hard for me not to respond to each person and reflect the wonderful things being said. I wanted to catch them and respond to them, but I very much wanted to see what happens if I'm not in the middle catching the ball. What did happen in that conversation?
Perhaps something like, for me, less relying on the one who is speaking or presenting, taking the responsibility to do more than just listen, take the risk.
Yeah, I felt like we started in a very wide place that Lynn proposed, and then there was a traveling into the particularities of the dynamics between some people, and some very specific things were named. And for me, when Sashi or Shashi, I don't know how you pronounce it.
Sashi, thank you. Yeah.
Sashi, okay.
Yes.
When Sashi proposed that we talk to the humanity in us, for me, it kind of broadened again. And I was just, so my felt sense of right now has changed, and I cannot pinpoint it, but it has changed. It's different.
Yes. Did you feel it's changed? Did you feel it's deepened or evolved or something like that?
Yeah, both. It deepened and it evolved.
Yes.
I think the particular interactions between maybe 2 or 3 people or around the same subject kind of brought a depth to what it means to be really interacting.
Yes.
And then again, the call for our commonality, we are all humans, kind of pinched the bubble of the specifics and went back into this, the wide world of, the commonalities that we have being humans.
It's very exciting to me that you're saying that, because that's one of the things that I find so miraculous, is the particular going to the universal, going back to the particular, the individual to the larger, back to the very particular of the individual. And you notice that the other thing is this understanding that we have as focusers that is really very, very radical, that it's organic, it's life to carry forward, to deepen, to broaden, and things interfere with that. But at the base, there's this life force, this carrying forward energy that we tap into, and that is tapped into in that the conversation itself carries forward or deepens or evolves, not just the people within it. And as the conversation deepens, the people's felt sense deepens, and as the people's felt sense deepens, the conversation deepens. Did anybody else experience the conversation going somewhere, or it doesn't go straight there? That's another thing, but it doesn't, and I'm used to that because it doesn't in therapy either, or in our individual focusing. It goes all different ways, but there's this trying to get to the sea, the little rivulets.
Liz is raising her hand.
Good. Now, Liz, when you raise your hand, are you raising it for me to see, or for the group to notice, or Jim noticed?
I had a question or a comment, somewhere in between a question and a comment. We're talking about deep, and I wonder what that means. And I think for me, it's more authentic. And I felt that before I was thinking more, I really wanted to know where people were, what time it was, if they had breakfast. I feel like for me, it's not so much the big ideas, intimacy, but the details, and maybe also thinking about breakfast of, we talk about bodies, and I feel like that's so personal. What is deep? What is personal? And sometimes maybe we think it's about big ideas, but I know for me, it's often about just, how are you today? Did you have breakfast yet? Was it good? Like the way you would talk to a friend, a pal.
Yeah, yeah. So
Hi, Liz. Hi, Liz. I noticed that Lynn asked, and I really, something shifted in me about my perspective when I started talking around the difference between me talking to a group, even if I knew them, if they were still a group and they become one, and talking to an individual. So I'm just deepening that understanding that the group didn't have a breakfast.
I love that.
I hope not. Anyway, impossible. So, I'm enjoying that deepening understanding of that,
That in Gene's paper, the experiential response, he talks about what is deep. And from his point of view, deep isn't the big ideas or what happened earliest in your childhood, but deep is to the point, finding the what's there. And you were expressing, Liz, the deep for you of the feel of the personness. And I think that was kind of a theme of the conversation. Does that seem right? Does anybody else have an idea about the theme of the conversation that emerged? There wasn't just one theme, but any theme.
I don't know. I think it's like an attempt to connect without the content. Like connect without, irrespective of the content, connect with each other without having a specific content.
Mm-hmm.
Need to get closer to people, need to become more freer in interacting or something like that.
Yeah. Certainly
like
something.
What did you have for breakfast? Sorry.
Something about connecting, something about knowing each other, something about what makes it safe, something about who are we to each other? What are we doing here? What is connection? Anybody else have yes.
I noticed that connection shifts for me. I can't always name what evokes connection in me, but I did notice today that I enjoyed when people named each other when they were talking. Like there's something about having a name put into the group and then a dialogue, and that I get to witness the dialogue. And there's an urge for me to jump into the dialogue, and something pulls me back, but there's definitely the urge to join and then make it bigger.
Yes. There's something there about how some people talked about the felt sense of our common humanness and the felt sense of the others, particular others, that doesn't need particularity. And then there's the other side of the coin, where when the person becomes their particular selves, that everything comes alive and we feel that connectedness. So when you name someone, say, Dorothy, thank you for saying that, there's some vitality that comes in there.
Yeah, almost like a poem, isn't it, Dorothy? Sort of the rhythm, and one person, the next one, and the voice, and there's a vibrancy here. Yeah, like a melody. It's so awake, even though I'm very sleepy. I feel, oh, and I'm enchanted.
I'm just wondering what it would be like if all of us were together in a real room, and how different things might be.
That's a wonderful question.
Yes, I was wondering the same thing, Mary. And also about name, for me, when my name comes or somebody's names come, then it's more, there's more presence, there's some recognition, there is an acknowledgement, there's like a layer of knowing, oh, you know, I see who spoke. I know the name. I relate to this person by their name. It means a lot with a name. I have to say it's nice also for me to see people speaking with accents. I guess I identify.
My experience of the 10 minutes was that we became one in an open listening.
Oh. It was interesting because we became, I agree that there was a kind of oneness. But also we became more individual. People speaking did call each other by name, and we became more one and more individual.
I would love to hear, Barry, how were you doing?
Thank you, Monica. I was just busy reflecting at this moment about the different layers that go on all the time, that there never is a group anything. Of course, there are some elements, but there's no group whole thing, because there's me, there's my body, there's irritations. I'm more predisposed to be listening kindly to some people and less to other people. Some people I immediately don't really want to hear from. When Jim speaks, I'm always fascinated. He's always to the point. And yeah, I'm feeling lots of discomforts in myself, also with broaching to speak up. So yeah, well done for calling my name.
It was wonderful to see you come alive. And there was a feeling of your sort of showering us with your inner thoughts and sharing them.
I'm curious. I noted that you didn't speak, and I was wondering, but I didn't have the courage to ask you. Like Monica said, maybe she knows you better. Like even in that people could be curious about each other, but you don't have the, I shouldn't say courage or I don't know. Like I noticed your quietness, but I didn't have the, I don't know the word for it. Like, but she did. How did she get that, and how did I get that? Does she know you more, or you are friends with each other, or you've been in group together with each other? How did that happen? Why can't I be more sensitive? Or that.
May I answer, Shashi?
Yes.
I don't think I've ever met Barry.
Oh.
I was just looking around the room and I just felt those layers around Barry. And I thought, wonder what he's thinking. And I loved hearing from you, Barry, because you definitely spoke some of what I was feeling around just your thoughts and feelings there. So that was lovely. And Shashi, you are incredibly sensitive.
No, but I believe
shy.
that he spoke the truth. But I believe what he said was really genuine. I feel that, but I couldn't have the words or the courage to say, what about you, yeah.
I wonder if you could now, Sashi. Is there someone that you would want to speak to or ask or?
Well, Robert always speaks. Robert, Bob DeMio, he always speaks. I know him from other people who haven't spoken. Like BJ hasn't said anything, I think. You know, I mean, that's the difference, because I want to draw the line between my curiosity and stepping on somebody's toes. You know, that it's just because my curiosity, my being too intrusive or something like that. So I just like, mind your manners, like that kind of thing. Yeah.
Sasha, you remind me of, there's at least two conversations going on in my head. One is how I'm relating to the group with my particular history and my history with this group, and how, the dynamic and the direction the group is going in. So there's kind of at least two conversations going on here in my head. When I first joined this group, I felt intimidated because I didn't think that I knew that much. But now I feel much more comfortable and part of the group without actually having to participate all the time. So I could see my evolution here. And in this short time, the group has evolved. We started out searching, and Lynn gave us prompts here and there, and now we're beginning to coalesce in a direction. That's all I wanted to say.
But I want to know, how are you feeling as this whale of a group? You know, this one whale, or are we little pieces of the whale, or what is it? Like, how do you feel about that?
The more I see the individuals in this group and getting to know them a little more, their humanness comes out, and no longer am I entertaining as much, at least, how I'm coming across, but I'm joining in with the flow of things, and I see individuals as well as a group. So that's an evolution for me.
That's nice, I think. That's nice.
Joshi, I just want to thank you, because I feel by asking the question last week, you've opened up an intimacy in the greater group that I hadn't really felt before. And I'm starting to feel that more. I have a hard time in big groups. I'm better in smaller groups. So in the breakout group, I feel safer to speak up. But by your participation the past couple of weeks, I'm starting to feel more safe being in a larger group. So thank you.
I'm feeling very grateful to you, Monica, for sort of claiming that freedom to ask Barry. And then it was very joyful for me to see you, Sasha, say, how did she do that? And then for you to claim that freedom. I think for me, the carrying forward process is a process of widening the range of freedom and taking risks.
That is something worth writing down, so I'm going to write it down.
Me too.
Lynn, you said widening the range of freedom.
Yeah. I still want to know, and maybe if any of you know, the fine line between within the framework of, you know, range of freedom and stepping on your toes, I still want to know the difference. For me, I want to know, because I think as long as it doesn't come from malice of any kind, you're not stepping on somebody's toes, as long as it doesn't come from malice. But I don't know yet. I need to grow in that thought. I just think that I think that would be it, but I don't know the difference. Yeah.
I think if we interact with a towardness of the greater good of the group, if we join in the greater good of the group, I don't think we step on toes.
I get a sense, Shashi, that you have like a very sensitive, intuitive sense, and that there's something that needs to be said, but there's a permission needed in order to open it up and put it out. And that's the word that came to me when you were speaking earlier. It's like permission, that somehow it's okay to put that forward.
I don't think so much permission as my own sense of I mean, that element could be there, but my own sense of what should I say? Confidence? I don't know. I don't know the word, but my own sense of that it's okay for me what I am at this given moment in this situation, and to reach out. And it's okay if the other person says, bug off. It's okay. I tried, like, it's okay, and go. That's, I would like,
Jean has some wonderful things to say about this very important issue. His principle in therapy is maximum contact with minimum intrusion. But he says that a sensitive therapist isn't somebody that knows the answer, like, can I say that or can't I? But who really listens to the next thing that happens after he says something. So he's sensing, maybe by an expression, by what the person says, whether that was intrusive or not, and then can comment on that. So that makes it pretty safe to try something, and then if the person doesn't want to answer, to or get shut down, to say, oh, I see that was going too far in what I was asking, or something like that.
I had this, I think it was Robert, you said that will we do something from good intent?
Yes.
And that was in response to Sasha's wondering. And I'm wondering, and it's because it generated, I'm wondering, I think it's something about symbiotic guilt, even though I might feel okay, if I'm looking at after someone, it doesn't feel so good if I feel guilty. So I just wondered, I wanted to check with Liz. I was left feeling that it wasn't as funny what I said about breakfast to you, and just bring it forward, Jean's thing about, was it, how did that impact about the breakfast? I was left feeling guilty, maybe a bit shamed, that I had gone too far. And I just wanted to bring that back to you, because it was your comment, was I right in that?
I'm not sure I'm registering what the shame was about.
Did
or what happened for you?
Well, something happened in me, and it was like that. What Lynn mentions, maximum impact. You know, and I remember listening or looking at some of the clips of Gene, and he worked, and it's only by checking with the person. You know, Sashi asked, you know, how would we know? So the only way that I know of knowing is asking the person. You know, so I'm checking. You know, it didn't seem as funny at your expense. You had asked about the breakfast and deeper and all that. So yeah, just checking if my felt sense of that was right, that, you know, that I had gone too far.
I don't think I registered as much as maybe I should have, because aside from any content, whenever I speak in a group like this, I come forward and I don't feel anything. I say what I say, and then there's not a lot of feeling. It's like I get a kind of performer's energy, and I'm kind of saying something. And then I recoil and I have to come back to myself, because the whole thing is, as much as this may not seem that it's true for anybody who knows me, there's actually a semi-traumatic experience when I actually speak. And so I have to, and I think when you were commenting, and I didn't register it even that much. And so you thought that something was happening with me that was about what you said, but it was actually me recoiling into, I just spoke. And kind of getting back to some equilibrium. So you read it as about you, and I think I just was like, oh my God, I spoke, and blah, blah.
I think
sure it was funny.
I think I registered as like that you went back. Now, whether that's true or not, I kind of went, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt you going back, you know, so.
And
yeah.
maybe you're actually bringing up something in general that, you know, we haven't really talked about, that I know of anyway, that about just the trauma of speaking in a big group. And Lynn, I was even thinking before you asked, what would it be like if we were all in a real room? And my first thought was, this is too big, kind of, and that we'd actually form natural breakout groups, like at a party, you know, that 3 or 4, you know, people would be in little areas, and that something about this being so big is kind of by its nature, you know, it's difficult, and the group maybe becomes an audience in a sense, rather than really, you know, that there's something here that can't really be intimate because it's so big, not to mention Zoom and all that stuff. Anyway, Pauline, I want to just reflect, I don't want to lose you again. Thank you for speaking up. And it's cool, man. We good, bro. Things like that we might say in New York.
Thank you. No, you confirmed what I felt, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't felt I lost you, you know, so yeah. Thank you.
And I was struck by that our felt sense of the situation and of the other may be very right, but our interpretation might be different than how the other person felt it. And checking is one of those things that is so fundamental to focusing. And we hardly ever do that in a group, right? So you brought that in, Pauline. And then your response, Liz, was so beautiful, of really being very personal about your experience of speaking in the group and that recoiling. And the more individual something is, the more universal it is. Not that everybody has it in the same way, but I think that's one of the things that we understand about the interaction first, that we're all in the same sea of humanness.
Oh, maybe one last question.
Yes.
How do we have that chance to check back? How do we sort of create that moment where we can check back? How do we, you say, navigate the differences? How do we clear the space that we can actually ask and check back?
The wonderful, wonderful question. And that's sort of in the territory of broadening the range of freedom, right? And almost inwardly checking as we take another step in freedom, like Monica did, to see, what happened with that. So we have loads to say, and I'll be very curious about whether this, with this reflection and experiment, will affect the group in the future. Will we have more freedom to speak with each other as we go forward? So Dorothy, let's have our poem.
Here we go. In searching for a poem, I just came across this poet from Ghana who just spoke to me about reaching out and history and despair. And something sad happened after I was reading about him. I discovered that in September he was on the way, he's from Ghana, but he was on his way to a writing festival in Nairobi. And in a market on the way, there was a terrorist attack and he was killed in September. So I was really sad to hear that. I felt like this person I just met, and then I found he's gone. And the poem is called, and also Christine put this in the chat because you might want to follow it with your eyes. It's not always difficult to take it all in, but I encourage you just to absorb what you can. And it's called Across a New Dawn, Kofi Awunor. Sometimes we read the lines in the green leaf, run our fingers over the smooth of the precious wood from our ancient trees. Sometimes even the sunset puzzles as we look for the lines that propel the clouds, the color scheme with the multiple designs that the first artist put together. There is dancing in the streets again. The laughter of children rings through the house. On the seaside, the ruins recent from the latest storms remind of ancestral wealth pillaged, purloined, pawned by an unthinking grandfather who lived the life of a lord and drove coming generations to despair and ruin. But who says our time is up? That the box maker and the digger are in conference, or that the preachers have aired their robes, and the choir and the drummers are in rehearsal? No, where the worm eats, a grain grows. The consulate deities have measured the time with long-winded arguments of eternity and death when he comes to the door with his own imitable calling card, shall find a homestead resurrected with laughter and dance, and the festival of the meat of the young lamb and the red porridge of the new corn. We are the celebrants whose fields were overrun by rogues and other bad men who interrupted our dance with obscene songs and bad gestures. Someone said an ailing fish swam up our lagoon, seeking a place to lay its load. In consonance with the original plan, Master, if you can be the oarsman for our boat, please do it. Do it. I asked you before. Once upon a shore at home, where the seafront has narrowed to the brief space of childhood, we welcome the travelers come home on the new boat, fresh from the upright tree.
Wow. Thank you, Dorothy. I'm so glad you put that in the chat.
Thanks, Christine.
Have a wonderful week, everybody. And thank you for playing with me this morning.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.